Good morning, Stephen.
The narrative around this is that there seems to be this rampant want from employers to just ring their employees and email them every day, all days of the night. But what are the legal implications here? Because initially there was a concern that there could be criminal proceedings brought against employers who contacted their employees outside of work hours.
Well, at this stage, there's no criminal liability, so that's not on the cards as far as I know. But as of this week, employees have a right to refuse to monitor, read or respond to contacts by their employer, but that's a civil right. And if that's breached, then they're allowed to apply to the Fair Work Commission for a stop contacting order, which is a bit ridiculous. No one's going to get into litigation because they were sent a couple of emails after hours. But I like your description of it as a solution looking for a problem. I agree with that.
Because, I mean, I'm sure there are some employers that abuse the friendship. But,
sure.
You know, the reality is that I think, particularly with younger people these days, we're constantly on our phones. So the right to disconnect would just be about putting your phone down.
Yes, absolutely. And this is a right that employees more or less already had. Now it's now been enshrined in law, but the reality is if you were a shift worker and you worked your shift and finished your shift at the factory or whatever and then went home and your employer rang you and you missed it, then they wouldn't be able to take disciplinary action against you or fire you for that anyway. And if they did, I think they'd be unsuccessful in the Fair Work Commission anyway. Now, this just makes it more explicit, I guess.
Is the law flexible enough, though, for... I mean, and I look at my own industry, it would never work here. There's no way in the world that
sure.
It could work in the media. But, you know, if there is, say, you know, a cafe chain or whatever where they desperately need to get somebody to work when somebody's called in
yep.
sick or whatever,
yep.
you would think common sense would judge that. But how much flexibility is there in this law?
Yeah, so there is a caveat on the law that says so they're allowed to refuse unless the refusal is unreasonable. So of course, what does unreasonable mean is the $1 million question.
Yeah.
That has to do with what's the reason for the contact. So for instance, if you were trying to fill a shift, I think ringing around to see if someone could fill a shift would be perfectly reasonable. What's the nature of the employee's role and responsibilities? And again, I think that's to do with how senior you are, the type of industry you're in. You know, if you're a lawyer or a media person, I think contacting late at nights are just par for the course.
Yeah.
But if you're a junior receptionist or you're working in a warehouse or something and you've got shift work, then I think, you know, besides ringing you for an extra shift, I think ringing you in order to discuss work issues outside of business hours might be a bit much, particularly if you're low paid. I think if you're a very high paid person, if you're a partner at KPMG and you get a call from a client at 9 o'clock at night and you're earning $1 million a year,
yeah.
well, I think you're going to have to cop that.
Yeah, well, and I think about, you know, from your industry too. If you've got a major client who rings up at 3 o'clock in the morning and says, "I've just been arrested," well, it's going to be
right.
all hands on deck, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. I've been had been in my pajamas with the red wine in my hand, and I've had a call on Friday night from a client who's in trouble, and off I've gone down to the police station. You know, that's just what you do, and you know, of course, we're remunerated for that. So I think you would expect that.
What are you anticipating as to how many times this law might be actually challenged or enacted, so to speak?
Yes, I think it's going to become the stop contacting order is going to be very rare. Where it's going to be relevant, I think, is where somebody's disciplined for not responding or
yeah.
for not responding amongst other things, and then that becomes it becomes a dismissal, and then that dismissal is litigated as an unfair dismissal. So is a dismissal unfair or not? That's where it's going to be really relevant. If someone was really the main reason they were dismissed was because they were contacted out of hours, then it's going to become an issue in that kind of proceeding where it's not going to be allowed to dismiss someone because they're contacted out of hours.
Usually when governments enact silly laws like this, the lawyers
yep.
are the winners. Are you guys going to win out of this, do you think?
I think there's going to be a lot of a lack of clarity around it, and I think it's going to make life a little bit difficult for employers and employees. And so I think the reality is probably it's going to end up in the courts, and people like me are going to be making money out of it. Yes, that's true.
Well, I wish you the best of luck with it, Alex. Good to talk to you as always.
Good to talk to you, Stephen. Cheers.
Thanks, mate. Alex Martin, litigation expert and partner at Taurus Legal Management. There you go. Legislating common sense. What a great idea.